Hello, I am Bogoan Kim, and I'm honored to present our paper titled V-DAT, Supporting Self-Awareness for Autistic People from Multimodal VR Sensor Data. Before diving into the paper presentation, I will briefly explain the research background. According to the report from the CDC, in the States, 500,000 autistic teens will age into adulthood pretty soon. Although the autistic adult population is rapidly increasing, research on their overall lifestyle is largely unknown. There are some VR studies for autistic individuals to support their self help skills and social skills, but those studies were mostly targeted at autistic children and have a couple of limitations. Many past studies have focused on analyzing just one or two sensor modalities separately. However, using VR technology, we can simultaneously gather and integrate data from multiple sensors. So, to address the limitations and incorporate autism specific preferences, we designed and developed V-DAT. In V-DAT, based on the review of prior VR research, we selected four representative sensor data. And V-DAT is integrated with a data handling pipeline. So, in summary, V-DAT's main contributions are as follows. V-DAT can effectively handle multimodal data and provide comprehensive visualized analysis and enable autistic people to reflect on their behaviors and help autism professionals make evidence-based decisions about diagnosis. This is a use case example of V-DAT. V-DAT consists of two features, data handling pipeline and web interface. Autistic people can experience VR training content, and autism professionals can provide sensor database training research to autistic people for more comprehensively. I will explain about data handling pipeline part first. First sensor is head position and rotation. For head position, the x-axis represents the left and right side of the head position, and y-axis represents the up-down, and z-axis represents the frontward and backward direction. For head rotation, pitch refers to nodding forward or backward, roll refers to tilting head to the left or right, yaw refers to standing upright and looking to the left or right. For head movement data, we use the law of signals and the focus of head movement to identify awkward or excessive interactions with virtual avatars and the environment. Next is the eye movement. We collected eye gaze origin, normalized gaze direction, and eye openness. For processing this data, we used region of interest. It is commonly known that autism population have difficulty in making eye contact during communication or social interaction. So we overlay Unity's box collider on the faces of virtual avatars and examine whether the participants stare at the faces of virtual avatars during training. By doing so, we investigated the degree of eye contact and duration when interacting with virtual avatars. Next is the audio data. Before calculating the voice volume, we use DVFS to extract only the participants' voices from the audio data. We empirically confirmed that -45 is the appropriate threshold. These audio samples show the difference.
아이스 카페 라떼 두 잔 하나씩만 받으세요.
Same audio but -45 dBFS.
다행이네. 아이스 카페 라떼 두 잔 하나씩만 받으세요.
As we can see in our data set, -45 dBFS worked well to identify not just the spoken words, but also the murmur and filler words. The focus of this data was whether the participant's voice volume when communicating with virtual avatars is appropriate or not. The last sensor data is physiological signals. We used an E4 wristband and wanted to examine the emotional changes in training stimulation. Then V-DAT used the Azure API to capture the time point where abnormal physiological signals occur. Focus for this data was to find some training moments that exhibit abnormal physiological reactions, such as anxiety. Finally, we synchronize all those four data types. Data extracted from the HMD have the same timestamp information, but data collected from the E4 wristband have a separate timestamp. To map the data from different devices to the same timeline, V-DAT uses Flask. And this is a short demo video of V-DAT. For the user study, 20 autistic participants were recruited, and after the experiments, we interviewed 5 autism professionals to acquire their insights on how V-DAT could be used for clinical session in hospital or centers for autistic people. I will share the key result of this case study. We measured the perceived self-efficacy scale before and after the training. Most of the participants showed significantly increased PSC scores. Participants reported that VDAT was informative because they could evaluate their behaviors against criteria commonly accepted in real life and examine the differences between the visualization results and their own thoughts. Furthermore, they found the training analyzed result of VDAT to be reliable, as a clinician presented them with the synchronized visualizations and a video. From the experts' interviews, we reaffirmed the effectiveness of the visualizations of VDAT to better understand autistic people from a more diverse perspective. In addition, we confirmed the gap between the psychiatrists who run outpatient clinics and the therapists in welfare centers who are more frequently confronted with autistic people. The doctors reported due to the short time available for outpatients, they had no choice but to focus mainly on prominent problems such as severe aggressive behaviors. On the other hand, the therapists often handle challenging behaviors of autistic people, but struggle to identify causes due to the lack of objective measures. VDAT could fill this gap in 3 ways. First, it enables quantitative investigation of underlying causes of autistic behaviors. Second, it supports doctors' clinical decisions with VDAT's quantitative evidence. Lastly, it provides synchronized visualizations with training videos for reliability. In conclusion, VR content for autism population needs to reflect autism considerations carefully. And research in VR for autistic people has moved beyond simply providing realistic experiences and has begun to analyze sensor data to identify multiple interactions in a virtual environment. So the key takeaways of our study are as follows. First, we identified 4 essential sensor modalities used in VR studies for autism. Second, confirmed the feasibility of V-DAT. Finally, we highlighted diagnostic and intervention potential of V-DAT's comprehensive visualizations. Thank you for listening.